Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is to use these solstice moments as a singular lens, helping you examine the patterns that underlie reality. These entries highlight synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences.
The kind that force you to consider the structures underneath the seemingly random events of life.
We're going from the elegance of ancient architecture right up to the mechanics of modern algorithms. So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with the celestial, the macro pattern. The power of the solstice is really in its predictability. When you look in the diary entries, the astronomical precision is often noted.
They mark this incredibly consistent rhythm the Earth follows. And those rhythms, they become extraordinary when the cosmos offers a really striking alignment.
You mean like the entry from December 21st, 2010?
Exactly. That describes a truly phenomenal event. A total lunar eclipse coinciding with the winter solstice.
Which hadn't happened for, what, almost 400 years?
For the first time in 372 years. So imagine that precise, rare synchronization happening in the sky above you. It's a kind of cosmic signpost that just instantly captivates human attention.
And it always has. The sources show that ancient recognition. The diarist references the Lascaux caves,
where the design suggests the openings were intentionally aligned to direct a sunbeam into the cave, specifically at the solstices.
I mean, that wasn't guesswork. That was a deliberate, sophisticated attempt to integrate the human world with the celestial clock millennia ago.
It speaks volumes about our need to track these cosmic patterns, viewing the sky as a sort of, a permanent calendar.
And we see that same sophisticated simplicity closer to home, too. The note from December 21st, 2021 mentions the Woodhenge at Monk's Mound at Cahokia.
Just a ring of posts.
Simple ring of posts, yeah, but perfectly aligned to mark these solar extremes. It confirms these moments are just fundamental to how we build societies.
Then you jump forward to the most famous alignment of recent times, referenced on December 21st, 2020.
The Christmas star. The Jupiter-Saturn Great Conjunction happening at the same time as the winter solstice.
Right, and that event was so powerful that the entry immediately poses this philosophical question. Is the something the universe is telling us just another anything? That is the core paradox, isn't it? We see this immense, beautiful pattern, the two largest planets appearing to touch, and our immediate human impulse is to ascribe deep meaning to it.
But the question is whether the meaning is actually out there in the stars or if it's purely something we're generating in our own minds.
We're projecting our own turning point onto the universe's turning point.
Yeah.
The solstice is fundamentally a hinge point. It's the maximum point of tilt, the seasonal pivot that defines biological cycles.
And speaking of cycles, there's that interesting, unverified detail from the 2021 entry.
Oh, about the tuna fish.
Yeah, the idea that they supposedly go into a kind of hibernation or seasonal pause until the equinox.
Whether it's true or just folklore, it just demonstrates how we're always looking for these macro patterns of rest and renewal everywhere. Not just in the stars, but, throughout the entire natural world.
That biological, almost instinctual pattern provides a really interesting bridge because now we can shift from the cosmic cycle to the much more rapid synchronization of human behavior in the digital world.
It's a profound shift. And the observation from December 21st, 2008 really nails it. Our modern fascination with being snookered by algorithms.
Right.
It's just new window dressing on an old idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that old idea is fundamentally pop culture. We've always followed the crowd.
The mechanism for the herd movement is just a lot faster now. The tools have changed, and that's where the deep dive really pays off. The 2008 entry details the DIMES project,
which was a fascinating sociological effort led by Professor Yuval Shavit. It aimed to map the social brain of the internet.
And this wasn't just survey data, was it?
No, not at all. They were melding math and sociology, using data mining from file-sharing networks, think torrents, P2P, to describe mass human behavior.
And they use this decades-old theory about how information spreads.
The core periphery structure, yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar, it just describes inequality of connectivity. You have the core, a few highly connected nodes like major websites or influencers.
And then you have the periphery, all the less connected groups that rely on that core for information.
Precisely. And DIMES used this model to develop a predictive algorithm. By tracking these connections, they could predict which musicians would ascend to stardom.
So not based on the quality of the music.
Not just on the quality, no. It was based on how their files were shared across the network. The key takeaway was about the structure. It made visible how these macro patterns, the inequality, the core-periphery dynamics, emerge from tiny micro-level decisions.
Like peering agreements between internet providers or just a single user choosing to download one file over another.
Exactly. And that is the digital solstice, right? It's understanding the cycle of popularity, the peak, and the inevitable decline, but with a mathematical model backing it up.
And of course, this knowledge gets leveraged. The note from December 21st, 2024 states it plainly. Persuasion, the secret sell, the secret sauce, they're all part of capitalist marketing.
But the tools are now different and ever more effective. The ability to systematically map, study, and influence these collective social patterns is the modern turning point.
So if these macro patterns are being mapped and predicted, how do they relate to the individual? This is where the source material gets into the solstice of the self.
It does. And it starts with how we measure age and history through memory. The observation from December 21st, 2022 is striking.
The thought experiment.
The thought experiment, yeah. It posits a society where everyone lived only 35 years. Society would look utterly different, ruled by just a few Senexes, a few elders.
And they would hold all the long-term wisdom. The value of deep, long memory becomes paramount.
And that experience of long memory is cited through the author's aunt. She lived to be 103.
Wow.
And had tangible memories stretching back to World War I and the 1918 Spanish flu.
Wow.
When you can connect those dots, you get this powerful sense that history repeats continually.
The entry suggests the ultimate measure of age isn't years, it's the quality and quantity of memories you hold.
Which leads us right into the fascinating, if controversial, concept of collective memory, discussed on December 21st, 2021.
Right, the discussion of the soul as the morphic field of you, the Rupert Sheldrake idea.
And we should note, as the diarist does, that Sheldrake is often dismissed scientifically. Richard Dawkins is a famous nemesis.
So why include it? I think the diary suggests the philosophical search is more important than the scientific validity here.
I think you're right. If memory is more than just neurons firing, it raises that potent question from a note labeled Dynaxiums 0498. Where did the thoughts we forgot go?
And later, in 2024, that search is connected to the more spiritual concept of the Akashic Records, the idea of a big brain that's recorded everything.
Whether you lean scientific or spiritual, the underlying pattern is that persistent human question of where our inner landscape is stored.
And how it connects to the past and to the collective whole. This leads us to the creator's pattern, which is explored on December 21st, 2022.
The consintention between compartmentalization and cross-pollination.
It's the contrast between the mid-70s garage band, where they just played top 40 covers and had no compartmentalization necessary.
Right. Everyone's on the same page.
Versus the later, aging creator who is juggling drastically different artistic personas. They're jumping genres from prog rock to jazz to microtonal music.
Let's pause on that. Microtonal music uses intervals smaller than a standard semitone. So it's literally the notes between the notes.
A clear example of moving beyond the accepted packaged framework of Western music.
And this shift, it feels natural to the creator, but society demands things be packaged in a certain way.
Put in a marketable box. This is reinforced by what the entry calls the art world expectation. It cites the artist Peter Halley on December 21st, 2022.
Who is known for doing essentially the same geometric painting for decades, focusing on the carceral world, prisons, as a metaphor for computers.
And you contrast that with someone like Andy Warhol, who is constantly shifting from pop art to film and publishing.
It seems society often prefers the artist to be predictable. It wants what it expects to see, while the artist wants to explore.
Which brings us to the December 21st, 2023 observation about the artiste versus the athlete in music.
Yeah, the idea that the 1980s favored speed in athletics. Think of the dazzling technique of Eddie Van Halen over artisti playing that. It was more about texture or depth.
The diarist argues that the bravery lies with the artiste, who is willing to explore the avant-garde.
Peter Gabriel is cited as a key artist, but even he was criticized. His So album was seen as more athletic because popular music was becoming like a sport focused on perfection and speed.
And the quintessential musical artist, Brian Eno, is the strong counterpoint. He faced brutal criticism.
That line in the diary is tough, where Lydia Lunch dismissed his ambient music as like drinking a glass of water.
Ouch. But despite that, Eno's approach ended up shaping entire genres. The lesson here seems to be that the solution to this pressure to package and perform is cross-pollination.
The creator has to enter a right-brain exploratory mode. The entries refer back to dates in 1997 and 2023, discussing painting as a visual language.
And the notes highlight Geddy Lee's eclectic interests, photography, architecture, cinema, as the ideal model. It's about transcending that left hemisphere mode of just executing notes perfectly.
Right, and instead seeing music as a visual art, like the 2022 entry says, like analyzing an abstract sculpture from different vantage points.
We've covered patterns in the cosmos, culture, and creation. Now let's look at the deepest and maybe the most frustrating collective pattern of all.
The choice between logic and emotion.
The assertion from December 21st, 2021 is pretty bleak. It contends that we never learn from anything that we do.
That society still reverts to medieval thinking and bonkers collective memes, because emotion is our default setting.
This boils down to a core neurological choice, doesn't it?
The simple, raw feeling of being angry or self-righteous is often more immediately satisfying than this slow, difficult work of logical consideration.
So the entry proposes this huge logical experiment. Try several thousand years of doing things purely logically and just see what happens.
It's a stark call to break the emotional pattern that history seems to repeat over and over again. And that emotional choice connects deeply to social dynamics, particularly avoiding responsibility.
The insight from December 21st, 2024, which comes from a discussion of the film Juror #2, is profound. The observation is that the world can run on conspiracies because it makes living with guilt possible.
I see that. It's a collective way of letting people off the hook.
Exactly. If the outcome is terrible, it's easier to believe some external, hidden conspiracy caused it, rather than acknowledging that our own small, emotional, or lazy decisions led to the disaster.
It's a collective avoidance pattern. And that avoidance, or the refusal to roll over on a point of principle, is noted on December 21st, 2025, as a deeper pattern of conflict itself.
So we're perpetually caught between the logical self-interest of avoidance and the emotional defiance of refusing to yield.
And emotion usually wins. So to break these patterns, especially now with all this new technology, we desperately need new language.
The final entry, December 21st, 2025, discusses Richard Susskind's work, which suggests that new technology requires entirely new metaphors to be properly understood.
This is a really critical insight for you to take away. If we apply old metaphors to new realities, we only see the old dangers.
Like the critique of current AI language. If we use the word hallucination, we immediately assume the AI is unstable or unwell.
We're applying a medical or psychological diagnosis to a non-sentient process. It frames the entire thing as a sickness.
And similarly, using military or medical metaphors like surgical strike assumes there's always a disease or injury that needs diagnosis and removal.
Right. It frames everything as a fight. The alternative metaphor suggested in the diary is far more positive. AI hallucinations are like a teen on mushrooms.
Seeing the world differently, and maybe having unique exploratory insights.
It changes the perspective entirely. It shifts the focus from an error that must be corrected to an exploratory vision that might hold some value. We have to actively choose new ways to describe our new realities if we hope to break that historical cycle of emotional reaction.
So we've traveled from the deep synchronicity of that lunar eclipse on December 21st, 2010, through the mapping of the social brain by the Dimes Project, to the deeply personal struggle of the creator juggling microtonal music and market pressure on December 21st, 2022.
And in every domain, the solstice has served as this turning point for reflection on the patterns that structure our lives.
What we've consistently seen is that whether the pattern is cosmic, collective, or creative, it only becomes visible if you choose to see the macro-level structure.
Just like that 2022 note suggested. Understanding music is like looking at an abstract sculpture. You have to analyze it from all these different vantage points to truly grasp its design.
And to break free of the expectation that it has to fit into some conventional package. So what does this all mean for you?
We discussed identity and the concept of collective oneness from the 2024 entry, which is a beautiful aspiration.
But if we are all supposed to feel as if we are one, does that mean we inevitably expect equivalence and equality as a fundamental right, regardless of individual talent or effort?
And if society is moving toward a highly measured, predictable, algorithmic structure, what is the viable role of the artiste? The person who strives for unique, complex, and unpackaged expression.
Is the artiste, by definition, incompatible with a society that seeks simple, packaged equivalence and collective emotional consensus? Something to mull over until the next turning point.